Priscilla says, my husband and I sold our late father's estate. We had someone looking after the place, and all parties had verbally agreed to be out by a certain date. Nevertheless, that certain date had then come. I think it was today, in fact. And the caretaker then says, look, I have nowhere else to go, so I'm going to stay here. The caretaker also then goes to the police, and the police advise the caretaker, whether correctly or incorrectly so, I think you guys will let us know, that this caretaker can actually stay on the property until they find a suitable place to live. The estate agent now, because the property has been sold, needs the keys as the new owner would like to move in. So Priscilla asks, can I go and take the key? Can I just go and take the key from the caretaker and then hand it to the agent? And then also, can I approach the police and say, listen, please escort me to the property, and can we remove this person? So Priscilla wants to know what are her rights in this regard. I don't know if I'm going to throw this to Bruno or to Silna, but you guys can decide who's going to take this one.
Well, the thing is, remember, any person that is in occupation of a property, in terms of the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act, the definition of occupant is a person who uses a property for permanent or temporary shelter. Now, this caretaker has been living in this property, so the caretaker is without any doubt an occupant in terms of the definitions of PI. No doubt about that. So to just take the keys and give it to the estate agent and let the purchaser move in, that card's not going to fly. That is definitely illegal. And the caretaker, maybe I should leave this one for you, what the caretaker can do if that happens. But then we're going to go to spoliation. But you can have that. So you definitely can't go and fetch the keys. Bruno will explain to you what's going to happen if that happens. So definitely the only way of getting this done, unfortunately, is through an eviction. Remember, the estate does have locus standi to attend to this eviction. If transfer already took place, did it, Chris? Yes, no, yes. So the purchaser does have locus standi to attend to the eviction. The estate may or may not, depending on the terms of the offer to purchase, be liable for payment of the cost of the eviction. I can't say that, I can't answer that question without seeing the offer. But unfortunately, only option out of this would be an eviction. And please remember to use a specialist firm, otherwise it's going to take forever. Yeah, okay, Bruno, absolutely. If they don't, can they go to the police?
All right, so I think what Silna's alluding to is what we call spoliation. So long story cut short, and there's plenty of case law around this topic. The reality is that you cannot take the law into your own hands. That's why this concept exists. A lot of people think it's unfair because even if you've got a right to do something, you can actually give back a specific property to someone who has no right to it simply because you took the law into your own hands. It's to protect the law, it's to protect the integrity of the courts and the way that justice is actually served in our country. And it's not South African based, so it's actually a Dutch principle. So it's something that's been tested over time. We tend to find it's unfair in the practical sense because sometimes our courts take really long to enforce rights, and we've got certain legislation like PI that gives that requires long periods and notice periods, and it takes a bit of time to actually get an eviction completed. But this principle of spoliation is there to protect everyone, and I can give you some horror stories on where people actually really benefited from it, where they needed it to come to their assistance. So if you take the keys away from someone, well, it's interesting enough because if you take the keys, there's still an argument that you haven't dispossessed them of the properties. You've simply dispossessed them of the keys. So, arguably, it's simply a set of keys, right? But as soon as
I'll argue anything around Bravi Manu there. Sorry.
Fair enough. Look, so like for instance, I was reading on something today, like even just the threat of dispossessing someone over something else, like the courts treat it based on the circumstances. But hypothetically, let's look at the keys, or let's look at actually removing the person from the property. That's simply spoliation, right? So as soon as somebody would go there with a set of keys and would lock the person out and they wouldn't be allowed access to the property at all, that would be spoliation. So taking the keys does cause that problem unless the person simply sits there and doesn't move from this property, but they would be able to claim the keys back at the very least. SAPS doesn't count because an eviction done by the SAPS isn't lawful unless it's in terms of a court order. And that's the reality. And typically the SAPS would only do this in order to assist the sheriff in execution of an eviction. So it's not the SAPS's job to do evictions unless the court has kind of authorized them to. So yeah, there's no authority there. PI has to be followed. And to Solna's point, just one thing that I wanted to mention that's quite interesting is you often get questions regarding the definition of occupy in terms of PI, and people would ask and go, oh, but hold on, a caretaker that wasn't supposed to live on the property, for example, that was only supposed to be there a portion of the time and take care of the property. Remember, it's not what the intention it was for this person to be on the property. Maybe he wasn't meant to occupy the property, but it's what he is right now, which is a occupier. So if he deems his property to be with a level of not permanency, but like he's living there, he's residing there, then he is an occupier in terms of the act, even though it wasn't your intention to give him that right.
That's a very valid point.
Oh, thanks, guys. Guys, it's so good to have you all with us. We've reached the end of tonight's webinar. As always, thank you for being with us. Thank you for posting so many questions in the group. I encourage you to post more questions in the group, message us directly, and get in touch with Solna and with Bruno if you have any concerns that you might want to raise and take further. Guys, it's so good to have you with us. I look forward to seeing you all next week.